I was bored and I decided to build this. And yeah, this is essentially a school community that I'm part of. And the person pretty much wanted to create an end-to-end workflow that will pretty much get an invoice from Gmail, put it in a Google Drive, and then use OCR to get the content to put in Excel or Google Sheet and then create a supplier invoice. I kind of removed the Gmail and Google Drive because that doesn't really matter in this case. What I did on the other hand is that I decided to vibe code this entire thing. So because we live in a time where you kind of don't really need to use end-to-end for all things. And for simple things like this, that is where the goal is quite clear and you're not going to make a lot of changes, you might as well just use a vibe coding tool like Anti-Gravity Cursor or Cloud or whatever. And that's kind of what I did here. And I'm just going to show you the entire thing. And really what I took is that I took the post itself and I just wrote in, hey, can you skip all of this, blah, blah, blah. It ran through everything, as you can see here. It created a script for me. And then, as you can see here, oh, I can't open that because it's an XLX file. Cool. But whatever. So either way, what I can do right now is I can just run this in the terminal because I'm a noob and don't have Python interpreter on this. But there you go. The invoices just got created. And this is probably going to be from the Google Sheet, from the Excel file, probably in this case. I mean, if I wanted to, I could just write it. Hey, can you change the XLX file to CSV files so I can see the content in VS Code. So, but this is kind of the thing, like, it's super easy to build it. And the good thing about what I've done here is that if you feel unsure about the entire build and you feel like, I don't know if this is good or if this is the kind of work, I've actually created a skill, a global skill, where I have told my every single time it starts up, I tell it to build these smaller functions. So since I use the code, it's a bit easier for me to be able to use read through. So what it does every single time is just that it will simply just create these smaller functions, and you can just look at this as one flow. That's kind of the same way, because now I just told it like, hey, can you just make like these smaller scripts so that I can run them myself and see how they work in real time. And that's essentially what I did here. It created like export to CSV script for me. So all I really need to do now is just run this, go through it and really read it and try to understand what is going on. And as you can see here, this is the script part. This is just the part that kind of runs the script, like if name equal main, but this is actually the script itself. So I can essentially go in here and like change things, see what happens, because that's kind of how I learn how this actually works. Versus just pumping out code that you don't really understand, and then eventually you're gonna get to a point where it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Because that's kind of the good thing about end-to-end that I kind of realized, that the reason for why you can kind of learn it so fast is because you can kind of test out things pretty fast and you can kind of understand what is happening with the visual part of it. That's kind of like the biggest part, because I did coding for a long time and it wasn't really easy, like understanding all of this. For sure, having been in end-to-end and now going back to Python is a lot easier for me to understand what is going on. Back then, I didn't really understand what was going on in a lot of cases. I was just like, webhooks, what's that? Like, how does that work? But now when I've been using it a lot in end-to-end, I'm just like, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, this is essentially how it works. So I would say I'm a lot more confident because of end-to-end. And like going from end-to-end to code is probably easier since you actually get an understanding of how it works. But once you get into the code, I do believe that you kind of need to break this down like end-to-end and really try to understand like what is going on here. Really trying to understand that, because that will actually make you be able to code with time. That's the very reason why I can use end-to-end and create things, because I really understand what is going on. And same thing here, like I can just read through this part because this is the function, like this is all. I just need to like look through it and go like, okay, what is happening here? Okay, we're running a regex over here and regex over there, and then we just return the items. And this is, yeah, I mean, this is kind of interesting how it does this, but what is that? Like number one, I have no clue what is going on. If involved, they update this all the time. So, I mean, these are new ways to essentially code, I guess. But it's kind of the same thing here, right? Like this is just a small piece of the code, and then it shows you like, okay, you can run this as a test. And by doing this, you will eventually learn how things work. And the goal really is that eventually when you understand all of these pieces is that you will be able to go to this entire, because this is entire code. So what we're doing here is that we're just using all of those pieces in here. That's kind of really what we're doing. Just letting it code for you and just sitting idle by and just looking at it, I don't think that's like the best way to pretty much understand like what is going on. But however, if you ask it, because it's gonna take time. If you were to like tell it every single time, like, hey, can you just make this smaller so I can like look through it? It will take some time. But right now, it does this for me every single time. For every, at least for the back end, that's where I want to look. On the front end, I have no clue. I don't even spend any time on front end, if I'm very real. But on the back end, that I do like the back end part. So that's where I'm just like, yeah, when you work with the back end, you just fry it out in smaller pieces so I can look over. And as you can see over here, it created a CSV file for us. I don't think I have, oh yeah, I have coloring. Yeah, perfect. So as you can see over here, we have the invoice number, and then this is a very interesting CSV. All right, so what is this? Okay, so this is just one. Interesting. Okay, that's kind of interesting how I set it up. Oh, whatever. Okay, invoice number, and then you have date over there, but the date is over here, and then you have vendor, which is over there, total amount. So I guess if I were to change it to Chris Yay, it's probably gonna, it's just gonna create that invoice, right? That's invoice number one. So if I go in here, it's probably gonna say, oh, it's still using the XLX file. Makes sense, yeah. So it doesn't matter if or maybe I didn't save. I hate this. I normally use PyCharm, where you don't need to save things like this, but yeah, maybe they have autosave on Visual. Maybe they probably have it. But yeah, this is pretty much it. So what I'm trying to say here is that, hey, if you're asking for something small like this, like, oh, I want to build an end-to-end flow that gets the invoice from Gmail and put it in Google Drive, and then OCR content to have it in Excel and Google Sheet, and then create a supplier invoice. If that's something small that you're going to use in your business, you can probably 100% vibe code this. And you could probably use I will probably just create it with one system script, essentially. I was thinking about adding a webhook, but you don't need that. All you kind of need to do is just create the script, run it, and it will just make it for you. And then you can just upload it to some platform, Railway, I don't know, Hostinger, Render. It doesn't really matter. You also have, what is it called, Google Cloud, where you can upload them. All of these are super cheap, so they're super cheap to use. But essentially, you use the vibe coding tools to make these simple solutions for you, because I do believe that in these simple instances, like here, where it doesn't require a lot of code and it's a simple solution, I do believe that in those places, it makes sense to kind of vibe code it. It kind of does, because it's gonna work. But if we're talking about something massive, like a lot of moving pieces, I will 100% not vibe code that. I wouldn't really do that. And I don't even know if I will use end-to-end for that. It just depends on how big it is. But that's really kind of how I approach this. So with this build over here, this dude, 100% is vibe coded, is completed. It doesn't really matter, because it's gonna work. And if you have errors, build it in a way where the errors are kind of pinpointed in one place. So it's not like one big sloppy thing. It's just like, yeah, if the error is over here, the AI tool can fix it pretty fast. Like that's kind of how I will approach it. I wouldn't really approach it like, oh, we have this massive code, and if the AI tool goes ahead and change something, it's going to change everything, because it loves changing everything. It loves changing things way too much. But yeah, this is pretty much how I can approach this, and hopefully you gain some value from this. If you like this, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time.